Please sing along with this arrangement by the Unitarian Society of Santa Barbara for our hymn number 360, Here We Have Gathered.
We are now called together, called by bell and bird, called by grass and clouds, called by the beat of our hearts, to join again the living tradition we share, to answer again the call to reason and curiosity. Today, with the bell ringing from Bongyangsa Temple in the Gangnam district of Seoul, Korea, and the meadowlark singing in the meadows of the Americas, let us remember the fifth of our tradition's sources, humanist teachings which counsel us to heed the guidance of reason and the results of science, and warn us against idolatries of the mind and spirit. Good morning. Welcome to Community Unitarian Universalist Congregation at White Plains, New York, formerly of the Lenape Nation. I'm the Reverend Meredith Garmon, minister.
Good morning. I'm Tracy Brenneman, Director of Religious Education and Faith Development, coming to you from my home in Dutchess County.
Good morning. I'm Adam Kent, CUUC Music Director, coming to you from my home in Manhattan, and grateful to be back with everyone.
We welcome you to this home of liberal religion, which affirms four truths.
It's a blessing you were born.
It matters what you do.
Your experience of the divine is true.
And you don't have to go it alone.
The sun is in the 12th and penultimate week of summer. The daylight today at White Plains latitude is more than 2.5 hours less than it was on June 20th. The new moon began last Monday night and is now waxing crescent.
A special welcome to our visitors. If you're a first-time visitor with us, we invite you to introduce yourself in the chat. You'll find the order of service on our website at cuucwp.org. There you will also find resources to help us keep connected during this time and a donate button.
For September, our Share the Plate funds go to the Interfaith Council for New Americans of Westchester, a coalition of local congregations that welcomes refugees resettled into our area. We are able to take contributions via the donate button for your pledge, for the plate share, and for the minister's discretionary fund.
Today, we will be having our annual water celebration and ingathering service. Here's the plan for what's coming. My suggestion is that you prepare yourself at home when you have a chance. Get a small bowl, like a cereal bowl, and put a 1/2 inch or so of tap water in it. Tap water comes from reservoirs, from rain, from groundwater sources. The molecules in your tap water have come from all over the earth. Each of those molecules has been around the earth many times. A little tap water represents the whole world flowing together. Second, get another container, a small glass or a vial of water. Perhaps you collected some special water this summer from somewhere, a special place for you or your travels, or maybe you just pour a little water from the same tap. Ultimately, we all come from the same source. You will need one bowl for your household. Everyone in your house is invited to use the same bowl. And each person in your house should have their own individual vial or small glass of water. As you add the waters of your individual self to the universality and the community we share, I will ask you to reflect on what the feelings are that you bring. At different times during the service, we'll invite you to sprinkle some water from your individual vial or glass into the bowl. You will do this once to represent shining waters of joy and happiness, a second time to represent storm waters of grief and sadness, and then rushing waters of change and transition, and still waters of rest and renewal. And now Board Chair Joe Majak has some news and will then lead us in lighting our chalices.
Hi, I'm Joe Majak. As the chair of the board of this congregation, I welcome you from North Reading, Massachusetts. As we begin another annual cycle of Sunday worship services, CUUC looks forward with hope and with a can-do spirit. We are eager to redesign what is necessary to keep us connected. We remain determined to put our congregation and ministry into the best possible position to deliver on our mission and vision statement, despite some unique challenges. We are all in this together, guided by our principles and a deep caring for each other. I am grateful for what we have created together in spiritual community. Let's continue the work and sustain it. And now it's time to light the chalice. On the 12th Sunday of the season, we dedicate our chalice to the fifth source of the living tradition we share, humanist teachings which counsel us to heed the guidance of reason and the results of science, and warn us against idolatries of mind and spirit. Please join with me in the chalice lighting words from Hannah Sanesh. Blessed is the match consumed in kindling flame. Blessed is the flame that burns in the heart's secret places. Blessed is the heart that burns for justice and peace. Blessed is the match consumed in kindling flame.
You'll recall that Theophilus Lindsay founded England's first Unitarian church in 1774 in London. In 1780, the Birmingham New Meeting called Joseph Priestley to be its minister, and under his ministry, the congregation became England's second Unitarian congregation. Priestley was then 47. In 1782, Priestley published A History of the Corruptions of Christianity. He argued that primitive Christianity had been Unitarian, that Jesus Christ was a mere man who preached the resurrection of the body rather than the immortality of a non-existent soul. With Priestley now the leader of the Unitarian dissenters, Unitarianism was a revitalized movement. Congregations began springing up around England. Then came the French Revolution. Unitarians supported the political upheaval across the Channel, seeing in it the prospect of humanity freed from despotism and superstition. Conservative leaders in England, however, were horrified by French peasants overthrowing the social order. As England grew increasingly frightened by the turmoil in France, Unitarians were attacked for supporting the revolution, denounced as enemies of church and state. Hostility to dissenters broke out in the Birmingham riots of 1791, also called the Priestley riots, since he was a central target of the rioters' ire. Rioters attacked or burned 4 dissenting chapels, 27 houses, and several businesses. As the rioters approached the Priestley house, he and Mary, his spouse, barely had time to evacuate. They fled from dissenting friend to friend. Priestley's valuable library and his laboratory were burned and razed to the ground, his manuscripts lost in the flames. Joseph and Mary Priestley fled to London, and 3 years later, 1794, sailed for America, where, as we have seen, Joseph Priestley established a Unitarian church in Philadelphia before settling in Northumberland.
This morning, we have our modified virtual water ceremony.
And after our virtual water ceremony will come the prayer and sharing of joys and sorrows. So if you have a joy, sorrow, or milestone, let me invite you to enter it into the chat starting now. Please make the first word be either joy, sorrow, or milestone.
Our water ceremony follows a custom that Unitarian Universalists have been following for 40 plus years. Many of those years, we aren't sure how many, the water ceremony has been part of our annual rhythm here at Community Unitarian Universalist Congregation. In the mid-1970s, the first Women and Religion Convocation was held at a retreat center in Grailville, Michigan. The organizers asked the participants, UU women and a few men from all over the continent, to bring with them a small amount of water from their homes to be poured together into a common bowl at the opening of the worship service. The water was to symbolize that although they came from different places, they were all of one liberal heritage.
It was a powerful metaphor of unity in diversity, of a community united across all the usual lines and categories that serve to separate and divide. And those who were there were greatly moved. Many returned home and shared the ceremony with their congregations. In the years since, the water ceremony has traveled all over our denomination, from east to west, north to south, in the US to Canada, even to UU congregations in Australia and New Zealand.
When we are able to be together in person, we pour our water into a common bowl, sharing our lives with each other, adults and children alike. Today, as we did last year, we do this virtually. The bowl you are using at home must represent our common bowl. Thus do we teach our heritage and instill connection in our young. Thus do we pass along traditions that are dear to us. Everyone present may participate, whether you are a first-time visitor or a long-time member. Our waters flow together. One way or another, this truth is unavoidable. Our waters flow together. We merge with each other and with those who have come before.
Here in our congregation's sanctuary, I have with me some of the water from last year's water ceremony, which itself contained water from the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before that, stretching on back through time. I pour some of that into this bowl that, just as your bowls in your homes do, represents our common bowl. In this way, we honor and come together with our past and those who were here then, though they are not with us today. Let us act out our sense of connection and relationship. Whoever we are, wherever we come from, we belong to one another. What affects one of us affects us all.
The winds of summer have blown us about, and summer is not over. The autumnal equinox is still 10 days away. Regardless, today we gather in to this liberal community of faith where we draw the sustenance to live out our faith in the world. Among us, there have been many journeys this summer, some of them physical, some of them mental, some emotional, and some spiritual. Some journeys have been a combination of some of the above.
In the time since last Father's Day, we've had experiences that gave us respite from our hectic and busy lives, leaving us feeling rested and renewed and ready to face months ahead with energy, a sense of hope and optimism. Still waters of rest and renewal have been with us.
In the days since our congregation's last program year ended, we have also had experiences that elated us, brought us times of gladness, experiences that lifted our hearts. Shining waters of joy and happiness have been with us.
In the weeks since the summer solstice, we've also had experiences that broke our hearts, stormy experiences of loss, pain, lonely tears. Storm waters of grief and sadness have been with us.
In the time since summer began, we have also had experiences that portended large or small alterations in our lives, our families, in our work lives, in our relationships. Roiling changes that brought disruption or discomfort, that brought sudden, hopeful new possibilities. Rushing waters of change and transition have been with us.
Joy and happiness, grief and sadness, change and transition, rest and renewal. Perhaps one of these was the dominant theme of your summer so far. Two of them have both predominated. Or maybe all four have been about equally balanced for you. Later in this service, we'll go around and ask each one here to say a word identifying the primary vibe of your summer. Has it been one or two of these, or all four? Or perhaps you'd like to use an entirely different word or two to identify what you've been experiencing.
First, we invite you to reflect on what has brought joy to you in the last 2.5 months. As Adam plays, think about the shining waters of joy and happiness you have known. And when you feel ready, sprinkle a few drops from your vial of glass into the bowl. As you do so, you are adding shining joy and happiness to the world we share.
Thank you, Tracy and Meredith. La Marchande d'eau fraîche, or the fresh water sales lady by the French composer Jacques Ibert, the title of the piano piece I'm going to play for you now, shimmers and chuckles with the effervescence of a freshly poured glass of Perrier.
I invite you now to reflect on storm waters of grief and sadness. Since Father's Day last June, your losses might seem comparatively small, or they may have been heavy. We have all had some level of loss. And as Adam plays, think about the storm waters of grief and sadness you have known in the last 12 weeks. And when you feel ready, sprinkle a few drops from your vial or glass into the bowl. As you do so, you are releasing your grief to the universal container that holds all that we are.
In a prefatory note to his piano piece, From the Depths, the American composer Edward MacDowell asks us, "And who shall sound the mystery of the sea?"
I invite you now to reflect on rushing waters of change and transition. Perhaps there have been some big changes since last Father's Day, or maybe only small changes, but we have all seen things pass away and new things arise. As Adam plays, think about the rushing waters of change and transition you have known in the last 12 weeks. And when you feel ready, sprinkle a few drops from your vial or glass into the bowl. As you do so, you're acknowledging the change in your life by changing the waters in the bowl that contains all changes.
Elsewhere among this morning's musical selections are several Jewish-themed works by the Swiss-born composer Ernst Bloch. At Sea, which I'm about to play for you now from his collection Poems of the Sea, takes its inspiration from Walt Whitman's poem In Cabin Ships.
Now for the calm waters of rest and relaxation. Perhaps your summer has been very relaxing, or maybe you've scarcely had a chance to catch your breath between Zoom meetings and work assignments. But we've all had at least some moments of restoration, whether fleeting or abundant. As Adam plays, think about those still waters of rest and relaxation you have known in the last 12 weeks. And when you feel ready, Sprinkle a few drops from your vial or glass into the bowl. As you do so, you add calm, restorative power to the mix that is in your bowl.
Gondolas drift languidly through the canals of Venice in this Venetian boat song by Felix Mendelssohn.
We had so hoped to be gathering in person today. 2 months ago, we were sure we would be gathering as a whole congregation by now in all our three-dimensional glory. In fact, 2 months ago, many of us were wondering if waiting until mid-September might not be a little overly cautious. And yet, the coronavirus fates, tempted as they were by a large percentage of Americans who were still not vaccinated, had other ideas. Still, we gather. Across our screens, we connect. We've gathered our waters, flowed together the liquid of our beings as represented now by the bowls of water in each of our households. Let those waters be blessed with these words adapted from Susan Carlson. May the waters we gather remind us what each of us brings to this community. May the waters we pour remind us of the waters that nourished us before we were even born. May the waters we collect and hold continue to give us sustenance and energy for our life journeys. May our waters support all creatures of this earth. We'll now have a reprise of last week's Our Congregation segment about the Interfaith Council for New Americans of Westchester, Jane Dixon and Robin Roque.
Good morning. This morning I'd like to tell you a little bit about the recipients of your plate share in September, the Interfaith Council for New Americans in Westchester, which many of you know as ICNA. As part of this interfaith group, CUUC has helped to resettle 3 families in Westchester and 1 upstate. Because the refugee resettlement was greatly reduced under the previous administration, ICNA resettled Afghan ally families who arrived through the Special Immigrant Visa Program. When Fardeen and Manaz and the children arrived in November of 2017, they had been living in Kabul in hiding, as a result of Fardeen's 11-year work history with American affiliates in Afghanistan. Fardeen and Manaz both came from families that believed in education. Fardeen had begun college but had to quit because he needed to support his family. And Manaz had also been in school, but at one point it became too dangerous under the Taliban for girls to go to school, and so she had to stop going. Devotion to family is extremely strong in Afghan culture, and during the year before his application was approved, Fardeen's father died. When his visa was approved, the idea of leaving his widowed mother was heart-wrenching, but to protect his family, he left his mother and siblings behind. In May of 2019, the Islah family arrived, and although they had family here, that family was unable to support them both financially and with housing. The Islahs came unable to read and write in either their home language or in English. Gulab had only 1 year of education, that was in the 2nd grade, and Farishta had not spent 1 day in a classroom. From his first day, Gulab kept asking about finding a job, and with determination, he did find one. In February of 2020, Fardeen's brother Haroon was granted permission to come with his family. He was also an SIV. Arriving just before COVID, his employment was delayed, and Haida, his wife, began sewing face masks and was paid through donations meant to support the employment of Afghan women. Haroon did eventually find a job at White Plains Hospital, and I want to say it was through a member of CUUC. Volunteers who've had the chance to work directly with these families have become deeply moved by their courage, kindness, and motivation to become part of the community. We think the stories of our families are exceptional, but they're not. These are the stories of refugees across the country. Fear and flight are the story of every refugee. You have seen the recent horrific headlines coming out of Afghanistan. In the coming weeks and months, refugees will arrive in Westchester to start a new life. There will be a need to increase capacity for resettlement here. They too will be courageous, kind, and motivated to become part of our community. I know that you stand ready to help them through your donation to the September Plate Share. Thank you.
As Jane mentioned, the need will be great to assist Afghan refugees this fall. 50% of September's Offering Plate collection supports ICNA, the Interfaith Council for New Americans in Westchester. In addition, you may make a contribution earmarked for ICNA via CUUC's website or by sending a check to CUUC with ICNA noted in the memo line. The Refugee Resettlement Social Justice Team also welcomes your personal involvement. There will be opportunities to assist with housing, education, English as a second language, transportation, employment, medical appointments, advocacy, and more. Feel free to contact me, Robin Roque, or Jane Dixon to join our team of volunteers. Your involvement is welcome regardless of how much or how little time you have to assist. Finally, Hearts and Homes for Refugees, another Westchester-based refugee group, will be coordinating efforts beyond what ICNA and other individual resettlement groups will be doing. They will help source volunteers whenever they are needed, and CUUC members are encouraged to support their work until we receive our own family to resettle later this fall. There is a link in this week's e-Communitarian to a letter from Hearts and Homes for Refugees that describes the opportunities and provides a link to sign up. Thank you for your support.
Our spiritual practice segment has suggested many practices to help in the development of emotional, psychological, spiritual flourishing. The slogans to live by are sayings we could all benefit from keeping in mind. and the worth a try or occasional are also recommended to everyone to give a try once or occasionally. And then there are the practices that simply aren't for everyone, but might be for you. I know Zen meditation is not for everyone, but it is my primary spiritual practice. As we start a new congregational year, it's time to ask, what's your primary spiritual practice? If you're not so sure, it's a good time to give some attention to discerning one. Not every activity or pastime is a spiritual practice. It's a spiritual practice if it helps you cultivate development, which you can recognize by telltale symptoms like these: increased tendency to let things happen rather than make them happen, more frequent attacks of smiling from the heart, more frequent feelings of being connected with others and nature, more frequent episodes of overwhelming appreciation. Decisions flow more from intention or spontaneity and less from fears based on past experience. A greater ability to enjoy each moment, decreased worrying, decreased interest in conflict, in interpreting the actions of others, in judging others, and in judging the self, increased non-judgmental curiosity. Increased capacity to love without expecting anything in return, increased receptivity to kindness offered, and increased interest in extending kindness to others. There are some guidelines for how to make a given activity into a spiritual practice. Check them out at Choose Your Spiritual Practice post at cucmatters.org. The link is in your eCommunitarian.
Our next hymn is number 100, I've Got Peace Like a River. Please sing along with Community Unitarian Universalist Congregation at White Plains. Hey, that's us.
In prayer, we take a moment to solemnly remind ourselves of our hopes, our intentions, and our gratitude, that they may guide and affirm our actions and our being. Will you then pray with me? Dear Spirit of Love, yesterday was the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. We hold in our hearts all those who lost their lives and all those whose lives have been changed forever. The reaction to those events 20 years ago cost many times more lives than were lost from the attacks that day. Let us remember and grieve all the deaths, those caused by weaponized airplanes and those caused by reactive fear, by false reports of weapons of mass destruction, by 20 years of war in Afghanistan. The attacks 20 years ago and the reactivity to those attacks have changed lives for countless individuals. We hold in our hearts the Muslim Americans who've continued to be targeted, and all those who still struggle with the loss of loved ones or their own memories of that tragic day. Spirit of love, be with us. Bring to us a healing and a deeper wisdom. We continue to hold in our hearts Afghanis in the midst of so much turmoil and fear. May there somehow be a respite for them. We are grateful this week for the Mexico Supreme Court's decision to decriminalize abortion and for the activists who have worked throughout Mexico for reproductive justice. At the same time, we grieve for the people of Texas, especially the Texans with unwanted pregnancy who no longer have adequate access to safe abortion. We hold in our hearts all our neighbors displaced by the storms of Hurricane Ida, and we hold the earth itself amid the climate crisis. We hold in our hearts the 4.6 million who have died from COVID-19, a number that is still growing by almost 9,000 a day. We hold the healthcare workers striving to stem this tide and are grateful for all those who've cared enough about other people to get vaccinated. We also hold in our hearts the sorrows, joys, and celebratory milestones within our congregation. And so we ask of ourselves the mindful intention to confront what is cruel, delight what is good, heal what is broken. And let us also now at this time lift up our Yom Kippur prayers. This beginning of the congregational year coincides this year with the Jewish New Year. The 2 days of Rosh Hashanah began Monday evening, September 6th. The High Holy Days conclude with Yom Kippur, beginning this Wednesday evening, September 15th. The evening hours the evening hours that begin Yom Kippur are called Kol Nidre. Kol Nidre means all vows. On one interpretation, it's a prayer of people not free to make their own decisions, people forced to say what they do not mean. They say that the agony of those who had to say yes when they meant no, those coerced and oppressed, echoes in each repetition of this prayer. On another interpretation, the Kol Nidre is a confession. We are all transgressors, all exiled from the highest we know, all in need of the healing of forgiveness and reconciliation. For transgressions against God, the Day of Atonement atones, but for transgressions of one human being against another, the Day of Atonement does not atone until they have made peace with one another. The Kol Nidre is a practical and honest reminder of our fallible humanity, which recognizing is the beginning of compassion. Here is the Kol Nidre prayer, which will be followed by a cello and piano rendition of Max Bruch's extended musical meditation on Kol Nidre. May all the vows and promises before God, which we have left unfulfilled, may all the moral pledges, penalties, and other self-imposed obligations we have left undischarged from last Atonement Day until this Atonement Day now come to us in peace. May they all be forgiven by the Almighty and be accounted as of no moment. We regret having made them. Still more, we regret having neglected them. May the Almighty grace strengthen us in the future to keep us from the rash vow, the hastily imposed self-discipline, and teach us to bear the sufferings of life as they come with patience and resignation. Amen. The water always flows. Pandemics come and pandemics go, and this one is lingering still after a year and a half, but it too shall pass, recede at least somewhat more into the background of our lives. Throughout human history, pandemics have come and gone, recurrent features of life, which, like water, always flows. This past year is washed away, and a shiny new congregational year stands clean, a fresh blank slate. And it's time to ask, where are you flowing? How are you changing? Who is the person you want to become? What is the spiritual work that you long to take up? What spiritual muscle toning exercises do we need? Pandemic or not, we gather in to do no more and no less than the work, the exercise of nurturing our spiritual journey, fostering compassion, understanding here and beyond, engaging in service to transform ourselves and our world. Nothing less than that and nothing more. We're here, our mission says, to nurture each other in our spiritual journeys. You're one that has the potential to slowly transform your life. Together, we can grow in depth and spiritual maturity. And we do this by exploring together the significant issues on which religions at their best have always guided people to greater insight. Issues such as this year's monthly themes: curiosity, wonder, wholeness, blessing, renewal, desire, humility, liberation, borders and boundaries, beauty. Our journey groups are for exploring together and spiritually growing and deepening, each in our own way. They meet once a month, September through June. You won't want to miss a single one, but even if you miss most of your group's meetings, you'll find it valuable to attend occasionally. Signing up doesn't commit you to attend. We just need to know about how many to expect. I've been so impressed with the experience to experience the wisdom and the connection, love and laughter and insight that Unitarian Universalists can offer each other when we give ourselves permission and the structure for doing that. We have a whole lot more we can learn from each other than anything that weekly Sunday services alone can convey. You can sign up online at cuucwp.org under Community, select Journey Groups. And if you haven't signed up online, please do. Members, friends, visitors are all welcome to sign up. The other program central to our mission: engage in service to transform ourselves and our world, and to our vision to commit to people and the planet through social action and service, is our social justice teams. We have social justice teams for the environment, racial justice, LGBTQ issues, the hungry and homeless, and others. The system's designed to be dynamic, with new teams coming into existence and other teams folding every year as the world changes, the energies and passions within our congregation shift. Anybody can start a new team at any time. It just takes 5 people to commit to it for a new social justice team to be recognized. Being part of this congregation means being part of its mission. Our vow to nurture each other in our spiritual journeys, to foster compassion and understanding, and engage in service. The world needs our Unitarian Universalist voice at the table. It needs our caring hands reaching out in compassion. Let us be ingathered, for a new year stretches before us. Let us flow together, roll on together as a mighty river, and in the words of the prophet Amos, let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. May that be so. Amen.
Our closing hymn is number 219, O Hear My People. The melody from the Jewish tradition is Lecha Dodi, a Sabbath prayer, with words by Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav. Please sing along with Louise Chernosky and Liz Tortorella of the UU Congregation of Monmouth County, New Jersey.
And a place profound and wholly true, and lead us to a mastery, or drives in us that war pursue. May deeds we do inscribe our names as blessings in the book of life. O source of peace, lead us to heal. O source of peace, lead us from strife.
Wow. Now please join Joe Majak for our chalice extinguishing words as you extinguish your chalice at home.
Please say these words with me as we extinguish our chalices. We extinguish this chalice and carry with us the flame of reason, to shine with us always against every idolatry.
And now, for those of you who see God, may God be with you.
For those who embrace life, may life return your affection.
For those who seek a better way, may the path be found and the courage to take it step by step.
Go in peace.
If you've got troubles, then I've got them too. There isn't anything I wouldn't do for you. If we stick together, we can see it through. 'Cause you've got a friend in me. Yeah, you've got a friend in me. Now some other folks might be a little bit smarter than I am. Maybe, but none of them will ever love you the way I do. Just me and you, boy. And as the years go by, our friendship will never die.